The dogs snarled and snapped, their eyes glowing with aggression as they lunged forward, muscles rippling under their sleek fur. The elderly man staggered back, his frail frame trembling with fear and disbelief. The racist vet stood with a malicious grin, completely unaware of the monumental mistake he was making. "Get him!" the vet barked, watching with cold satisfaction as the bulldogs advanced on the 90-year-old man. They were trained to attack on command, their military background evident in their ruthless precision. The man fell to the ground, gasping for breath, but there was no mercy in the vet's eyes. In a nearby alleyway, a shadowy figure moved swiftly, eyes widening in horror at the sight. The figure's mind raced, recognizing the elderly man immediately. Jet Li's father was in grave danger. With a rush of adrenaline, the figure darted forward, but not before one of the bulldogs lunged, its teeth sinking into the man's leg. Just hours earlier, the day had started like any other in the small, quiet town. Jet Li's father, Mr. Li, enjoyed a peaceful walk every morning. He cherished the fresh air, the chirping of birds, and the simple beauty of nature. But today was different. As he strolled along the familiar path, Mr. Li couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The town seemed unusually tense, and he noticed a group of people whispering and casting furtive glances his way. He dismissed it as paranoia, but his instincts told him otherwise. Meanwhile, at the edge of town, the racist vet, known for his extreme views and violent tendencies, was fuming. He had never liked Mr. Li, harboring an irrational hatred for anyone different from himself. Today, his anger reached a boiling point, and he decided to take matters into his own hands. The vet paced back and forth in his dimly lit office, plotting his next move. His bulldogs, highly trained for combat, watched him intently. He knew he had to act quickly before anyone could stop him. Back on the path, Mr. Li continued his walk, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. He approached a small park where children played and families enjoyed picnics. The sight brought a smile to his face, momentarily easing his worries. But as he neared the park's entrance, the vet appeared, blocking his way. The bulldogs growled menacingly at his side, their eyes locked on Mr. Li. "You're not welcome here," the vet sneered, his voice dripping with venom. Mr. Li tried to reason with him, but the vet was beyond listening. With a flick of his wrist, he unleashed the dogs, setting off the chain of events that led to the shocking scene. The figure reached Mr. Li just in time, kicking the bulldog away and lifting the elderly man to safety. The vet's face twisted in rage as he realized his mistake. This was no ordinary old man. This was Jet Li's father. The confrontation was far from over, and as the figure revealed their identity, the town would soon learn that there was more at stake than anyone could have imagined. But for now, the fate of Mr. Li hung in the balance, leaving everyone wondering what would happen next. The commotion from the park had drawn a small crowd, their murmurs growing louder as they realized the gravity of the situation. The vet's face twisted in anger and confusion as he saw the figure standing protectively over Mr. Li. This was not part of his plan. The figure, a young martial artist named Chun, had been practicing his moves in the alleyway when he heard the cries for help. Chun had always admired Jet Li and was shocked to find himself defending Jet Li's father. He could feel the eyes of the onlookers on him, their anticipation palpable. "Step back," Chun warned, his voice firm and steady. The bulldogs, momentarily thrown off by the unexpected presence, growled and snarled but didn't advance. The vet's fury only grew. "You have no idea who you're messing with," the vet spat, his eyes blazing with hatred. "I'll make you regret this." Chin's heart raced, but he stood his ground. He knew he had to protect Mr. Li, no matter the cost. With a swift, calculated move, he disarmed the vet of the leash he held, sending the bulldogs into confusion. "Mr. Li, are you okay?" Chun asked, helping the elderly man to his feet. Mr. Li nodded weakly, his eyes filled with gratitude and relief. "Thank you, young man," Mr. Li whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along." Before Chun could respond, the vet lunged at him, his fists swinging wildly. Chun dodged the attack, his martial arts training kicking in instinctively. The crowd gasped as the two men engaged in a fierce struggle, each blow landing with precision. As the fight escalated, a police siren wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. The vet, realizing the authorities were closing in, made a desperate attempt to flee. Chun, however, was determined not to let him escape. With a final, powerful strike, Chun subdued the vet, pinning him to the ground. The bulldogs, now leaderless, backed away, their aggression dissipating. The police arrived just in time, handcuffing the vet and leading him away. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the park. Chun helped Mr. Lee to a nearby bench, where the paramedics quickly attended to his injuries. The vet's actions had left a deep scar, but Mr. Lee was alive, thanks to Chun's bravery. As the adrenaline began to wear off, Chun couldn't help but wonder about the events that had led to this moment. Why had the vet targeted Mr. Lee? And what would Jet Li think when he learned of his father's ordeal? The questions swirled in his mind, but for now, he was content knowing he had done the right thing. The town buzzed with excitement and relief as news of the incident spread. Chun had become an unexpected hero, and Mr. Lee's story touched the hearts of many. The local newspaper featured the headline, "Racist Vet Unleashes Military Bulldogs on 90-year-old Man, Unaware He is Jet Li's Father." But the story was far from over. The vet's actions had left a trail of questions and dark secrets waiting to be uncovered. As Mr. Lee recovered in the hospital, Chun couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the vet's hatred than met the eye. Chun decided to visit Mr. Lee, hoping to learn more about the events leading up to the attack. When he arrived at the hospital, he found Mr. Lee resting comfortably, his face lighting up with a smile when he saw Chun. "Chun, my boy, thank you for everything," Mr. Lee said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Chun nodded, taking a seat beside Mr. Lee's bed. "Mr. Lee, I need to understand why the vet targeted you. There must be a reason behind his actions." Mr. Lee sighed, his eyes clouding with memories. "It's a long and painful story, Chun. The vet, Mr. Harris, has always harbored resentment towards our family. It goes back many years to a time when my son, Jet, was just starting his martial arts journey." Mr. Lee began to recount the past, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He spoke of how Jet had faced discrimination and prejudice as he rose to fame, how Mr. Harris had been one of the most vocal opponents of his success. Harris's hatred had festered over the years, fueled by jealousy and fear. As Mr. Lee's story unfolded, Chun realized that the vet's actions were not just a random act of violence. They were part of a deeper, more sinister plot to undermine Jet Li's legacy and harm his family. Determined to uncover the truth, Chun decided to investigate further. He knew he couldn't do it alone, so he reached out to a trusted friend, May, who was known for her sharp investigative skills. Together, they would delve into the vet's past and uncover the secrets that had driven him to such extreme measures. Late that night, Chun and May met at a quiet cafe, their faces serious as they discussed their plan. May had already gathered some information about Harris, and it painted a disturbing picture. Harris has a history of violent behavior, May explained, showing Chun a stack of old newspaper clippings. He was discharged from the military for misconduct, and there are several reports of him harassing people who don't fit his narrow view of the world. Chun nodded, his resolve strengthening. "We need to find out if he was working alone or if there are others involved. This goes beyond just one man's hatred." As they dug deeper, they discovered a network of individuals who shared Harris's views, each one contributing to the toxic environment that had led to the attack on Mr. Lee. The more they learned, the more dangerous their investigation became. One evening, as Chun returned home, he noticed a shadowy figure lurking outside his apartment. His instincts told him he was being watched, and his heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. He knew they were getting closer to the truth, and that made them targets. In the stillness of the night, Chun received a chilling phone call. The voice on the other end was cold and menacing. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it," the voice warned before abruptly hanging up. Chun's mind raced, but he knew he couldn't back down now. He had to protect Mr. Lee and uncover the full extent of the conspiracy. As he prepared for the challenges ahead, he couldn't help but wonder what new dangers awaited him. Chen's heart raced as he replayed the threatening phone call in his mind. He knew that their investigation was ruffling feathers, and the unseen threats were becoming very real. Determined not to let fear deter him, he met with May the next day to discuss their next steps. "We're getting closer to something big," May said, her voice steady but concerned. "We need to be extra cautious. I think we should go through Harris's past connections and see who else might be involved." Chen nodded in agreement. "Let's start with the people Harris worked with in the military. If we can find any old associates who share his views, we might get a better understanding of the network behind this." As they delved deeper into Harris's military records, they uncovered a list of names that sent shivers down their spines. These were individuals with a history of violence and extremist beliefs, and many of them had stayed in contact with Harris over the years. One name stood out: Colonel Thompson, a retired officer known for his harsh and discriminatory tactics. Chun and May decided to pay him a visit, hoping to gather more information about Harris and his connections. They arrived at Colonel Thompson's secluded cabin in the woods, the atmosphere thick with tension. Thompson greeted them with a stern gaze, his eyes narrowing as he recognized Chun from the news. "What do you want?" Thompson barked, his voice gruff. "I've got nothing to say to you." Chun took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "We just want to understand why Harris targeted Mr. Lee. We know there's more to this story, and we're not leaving until we get some answers." Thompson's expression hardened, and for a moment, Chun thought he would refuse to cooperate. But then, something shifted in Thompson's eyes, a flicker of uncertainty. "Harris was always a loose cannon," Thompson admitted, his voice lowering. "He hated anyone who didn't fit his idea of pure. He was obsessed with Jet Li's success, seeing it as a threat to his warped beliefs. There were others like him, but most of them are just cowards hiding behind their hate." Chun and May listened intently, absorbing every word. They pressed Thompson for more details, hoping to uncover any connections that could lead them to the root of the conspiracy. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Mr. Lee's condition was slowly improving. He was visited by friends and family, their presence providing him with comfort and strength. News of his ordeal had reached Jet Li, who was filming a movie in another country. Jet immediately made arrangements to return home, his heart heavy with worry and anger. As Jet boarded the plane, he couldn't help but think about the impact of his father's bravery and Chen's heroism. He knew that this was a fight that went beyond just one incident. It was about standing up against hate and protecting those he loved. Back in the town, Chun and May's investigation was gaining momentum. They had uncovered several key players in the network of extremists, each one more dangerous than the last. The threat was growing, and they knew they had to act quickly to prevent further harm. One evening, as Chun and May were poring over their notes, they received a message from an anonymous source. The message contained a list of locations where Harris and his associates had held secret meetings. It was a goldmine of information, but it also put them at greater risk. Determined to follow the lead, they decided to stake out one of the locations, a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. As they watched from a distance, they saw a group of men entering the building, their faces obscured by shadows. Chen's heart pounded with anticipation. They were on the brink of uncovering a major piece of the puzzle. But just as they were about to make their move, they heard footsteps approaching from behind. Chun and May whirled around, their senses on high alert. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, revealing a familiar face, Detective Kwame, the town's lead investigator. "Detective, what are you doing here?" May asked, her voice tense. "I could ask you the same thing," Kwame replied, his eyes narrowing. "I've been following the same trail you have. This goes deeper than we thought." Chun and May exchanged glances, relieved to have an ally in their pursuit of justice. Together, they decided to infiltrate the warehouse and uncover the full extent of the conspiracy. They approached the warehouse cautiously, their movements silent and deliberate. As they peered through a cracked window, they saw Harris's associates gathered around a table, discussing their plans in hushed tones. "It's time to take action," one of the men said, his voice filled with malice. "We can't let Jet Li and his family get away with this. They've tarnished our reputation, and we need to make them pay." Chin's blood boiled as he listened to their hateful words. He knew they had to act fast before these extremists could carry out their plans. Detective Kwame signaled for backup, and within minutes, the police surrounded the warehouse. Chun, Mei, and Kwame burst through the doors, catching the conspirators off guard. "Freeze! You're all under arrest," Kwame shouted, his voice echoing through the warehouse. Panic ensued as the men tried to flee, but the police quickly apprehended them. Chun and Mei scanned the room, their eyes falling on a map pinned to the wall. It marked various locations across the town, each one a potential target for the extremists. As the police secured the scene, Chun approached the map, his heart heavy with determination. He knew they had to prevent any further attacks and ensure the safety of Mr. Li and his family. Back at the hospital, Mr. Li received an unexpected visitor, Jet Li himself. The sight of his father in a hospital bed filled Jet with a mix of anger and sorrow, but also gratitude for Chun and Mei's bravery. "Father, I'm so sorry this happened to you," Jet said, his voice choked with emotion. "I'll make sure those responsible are brought to justice." Mr. Li smiled weakly, reaching out to hold his son's hand. "I'm proud of you, Jet, and I'm grateful for Chun and Mei. They risked their lives to protect me." Jet nodded, his resolve strengthening. He knew he had to stand by Chun and Mei in their fight against hatred and prejudice. Together, they would ensure that the town remained a safe place for everyone. The next day, Chun, Mei, and Detective Kwame gathered to discuss their next steps. They had a list of names and locations, but they needed a plan to bring down the entire network. "We need to coordinate with the authorities and gather more evidence," Kwame said. "This isn't just about arresting a few individuals. We need to dismantle the entire organization." Mei nodded in agreement. "We'll also need the support of the community. People need to know what's happening and stand against this hatred." As they strategized, they received an unexpected call from an anonymous informant. The informant claimed to have inside information about the extremists' next move and offered to meet them in a secluded location. It was a risky proposition, but Chun and Mei knew they couldn't pass up the opportunity. They arranged to meet the informant that evening, hoping to gather crucial intel that could turn the tide in their favor. That night, Chun and Mei arrived at the designated meeting spot, a dimly lit park on the outskirts of town. Their eyes scanned the area, searching for any signs of danger. A figure emerged from the shadows, their face obscured by a hood. "I have information that can help you," the informant said, their voice barely above a whisper. "But you need to be careful. They're watching you." Chun and Mei listened intently as the informant revealed details about the extremists' plans and the people involved. It was a goldmine of information, but it also painted a grim picture of the challenges ahead. "We need to act fast," the informant warned. "They're planning something big, and it could happen any day now." As the informant disappeared into the night, Chun and Mei exchanged determined glances. They knew they were racing against time, and the stakes had never been higher. Chun and Mei felt a sense of urgency as they left the park, their minds racing with the informant's chilling words. They knew they had to act quickly to prevent the extremists from executing their plan. The safety of the town and Mr. Li's family depended on it. They met with Detective Kwame at the police station where they shared the information they had gathered. Kwame's expression grew graver with each detail, and he immediately began coordinating with his team to secure potential targets and gather more evidence. "We need to be one step ahead of them," Kwame said, his voice resolute. "We'll set up surveillance at the locations marked on the map and keep a close watch on Harris's associates." Chun and Mei worked tirelessly, poring over documents and analyzing patterns to anticipate the extremists' next move. Their investigation led them to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town, a place known for its seedy reputation. They decided to stake out the factory, hoping to catch the conspirators in the act. As they watched from a concealed vantage point, they saw a group of men enter the building, their movements shrouded in secrecy. "This is it," Mei whispered, her eyes locked on the scene. "We need to get closer and find out what they're planning." Chin nodded, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. They moved stealthily, their senses heightened as they approached the factory. As they peered through a broken window, they saw the men gathered around a table, their expressions intense. One of the men, who appeared to be the leader, spoke in a low, commanding voice. "We strike tomorrow at dawn. We can't afford any mistakes. Our message needs to be clear." Chun and Mei exchanged worried glances. They knew they had to act fast to prevent the attack. They contacted Detective Kwame, who quickly mobilized his team to surround the factory. The dawn of the next day brought a tense stillness to the town. Police officers were stationed at key locations, their eyes scanning for any signs of trouble. Chun and Mei remained vigilant, their hearts heavy with the weight of their mission. As the first light of morning broke through the horizon, the extremists made their move. They attempted to converge on the targets marked on their map, but they were met with swift resistance from the police. A fierce confrontation ensued, and Chun found himself face-to-face with one of the extremists. The man's eyes burned with hatred as he lunged at Chun, but Chun's martial arts training allowed him to quickly subdue his attacker. Mei, too, fought bravely, using her sharp instincts to outmaneuver her opponents. The police worked in tandem with them, their coordinated efforts overwhelming the extremists. As the dust settled, it became clear that the attack had been thwarted. The extremists were arrested, their plans foiled. The town breathed a collective sigh of relief, grateful for the bravery and determination of Chun, Mei, and Detective Kwame. Back at the hospital, Jet Li sat by his father's bedside, holding his hand. Mr. Li's eyes filled with pride and gratitude as he listened to the news of the successful operation. "You've done well, my son," Mr. Li said, his voice filled with emotion. "You and your friends have protected our family and our town." Jet nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "We couldn't have done it without Chun and Mei. They risked everything to ensure our safety." As Jet and Mr. Li shared a moment of quiet reflection, Chun and Mei arrived at the hospital, their faces beaming with relief. They were greeted with warm embraces and heartfelt thanks, knowing that their efforts had made a difference. But even as they celebrated their victory, Chun couldn't shake the feeling that there were still unanswered questions. He knew that the extremist network was larger than just a few they had captured. The threat of hatred and prejudice loomed, and their fight was far from over. As they regrouped and prepared for the challenges ahead, Chen's resolve remained unwavering. He knew that, together, they could continue to stand against the darkness and protect those they loved. As the dust settled from their recent victory, Chun and Mei couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to uncover. They knew they had to dig deeper to find the true mastermind behind the network of extremists. Detective Kwame agreed with their suspicions. "We've caught many of the key players, but there's someone pulling the strings from behind the scenes. We need to find out who that is and bring them to justice." Chun and Mei continued their investigation, analyzing the information they had gathered and following new leads. Their efforts led them to an old acquaintance of Harris, a man named Victor, who was known for his deep connections in the underground world. They arranged to meet Victor in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. The atmosphere was tense as they approached him, their eyes locked in determination. "Victor, we need your help," Chun said, his voice steady. "We know you have information about the network Harris was part of. We need to know who is behind all of this." Victor took a long sip of his drink, his eyes narrowing as he studied Chun and Mei. "Why should I help you?" he asked, his tone cautious. "Because this is bigger than just a few individuals," Mei replied. "Innocent lives are at stake, and we can't allow this hatred to continue. You have a chance to do the right thing." Victor sighed, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "All right, I'll tell you what I know, but you need to be careful. The man you're looking for is dangerous. He's the real puppet master behind Harris and the others." Victor revealed the name of the mastermind, Dominic Kane, a wealthy businessman with a reputation for ruthlessness. Kane had been funding and orchestrating the extremist activities from the shadows, using his influence and resources to spread hate and division. Chun and Mei realized that bringing down Kane would be their most challenging task yet. They needed solid evidence to expose him and ensure that he faced justice. As they prepared for their next move, Jet Li joined their efforts, determined to protect his father and stand against the forces of hatred. His presence brought new energy and focus to their mission. "We'll take down Kane together," Jet said, his eyes filled with resolve. "He won't get away with this." The team devised a plan to infiltrate Kane's inner circle and gather the evidence they needed. Chun and Mei, with their investigative skills, worked tirelessly to uncover Kane's operations and connections. They discovered that Kane was hosting a high-profile charity gala, an event that would provide the perfect opportunity to expose him. With Jet's fame and connections, they managed to secure invitations to the gala, posing as guests to gain access. The night of the gala arrived, and the team was ready. Chun, Mei, and Jet entered the grand venue, their eyes scanning the room for any signs of Kane and his associates. The atmosphere was elegant and refined, a stark contrast to the sinister intentions that lay beneath. As they mingled with the guests, they gathered snippets of conversations and observed Kane's interactions. Chun and Mei managed to plant recording devices in key areas, capturing incriminating conversations and evidence of Kane's involvement in the extremist network. As the night progressed, they saw Kane step onto the stage, addressing the crowd with a polished and charismatic demeanor. But behind his facade, they knew the truth. "We can't let him continue," Jet whispered, his fists clenched. "We need to act now." With the evidence they had gathered, they signaled Detective Kwame and his team, who were waiting nearby. The police stormed the venue, catching Kane and his associates off guard. Kane's expression shifted from confidence to panic as he realized he had been exposed. The police arrested him, and the room erupted in confusion and disbelief. Back at the hospital, Mr. Lee watched the news unfold, tears of relief streaming down his face. The mastermind behind the attack had been brought to justice, thanks to the bravery and determination of Chun, Mei, Jet, and Detective Kwame. The town slowly began to heal, the shadow of hatred lifting as the extremists' network crumbled. The community rallied together, united in their commitment to stand against prejudice and protect one another. Chun and Mei stood by the riverbank, reflecting on their journey. They knew that their fight against hatred would continue, but for now, they could take solace in their victory. "We did it," Mei said, her voice filled with gratitude. "We stood up against the darkness and made a difference." Chun nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "And we'll keep fighting no matter what. Together, we can create a better future." The aftermath of Kane's arrest sent shockwaves through the town. The once hidden network of hatred and extremism had been dismantled, and the community began to heal. People came together, united in their resolve to stand against prejudice and protect one another. Chun, Mei, and Jet Li stood by the riverbank, reflecting on their journey. They knew that their fight against hatred would continue, but for now, they could take solace in their victory. As the sun rose over the town, casting a golden glow on the landscape, they felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. Their actions had made a difference, and they were determined to continue their mission of creating a better, more inclusive future. The weeks following Kane's arrest were filled with moments of healing and unity. Mr. Lee fully recovered, and he was surrounded by friends and family who supported him every step of the way. Chun and Mei were hailed as heroes, their bravery and determination inspiring others to stand up against injustice. The town held a ceremony to honor their efforts, with Jet Li delivering a heartfelt speech that resonated with everyone. "Today, we celebrate the courage and resilience of our community," Jet said, his voice filled with emotion. "We stood together against hatred and proved that love and unity will always prevail. Let us continue to support one another and build a future where everyone is valued and respected." The crowd erupted in applause, their hearts filled with pride and hope. Chun and Mei smiled, knowing that their journey had made a lasting impact. As the years passed, the town flourished, becoming a symbol of resilience and unity. Chun and Mei continued their work, advocating for justice and equality. Jet Li's legacy grew stronger, inspiring generations to come. And through it all, the memory of their struggle and triumph remained, a testament to the power of standing together against darkness and creating a brighter, more inclusive world.